Well, welcome to the Legends Community Show right here on the powerofvoices.com. Of course, I'm your host each and every week, Greg Bell, coming to you live from one of those unhidden places here in Southern California, whatever my cohorts will generally joke about. But hey, I'm coming to you guys live in the living color here, having a lot of fun, got a lot to talk about. Man, it is, I don't know how you view this time of the year, but when you're talking about sports, you really got to be talking about the NBA Finals. We're seeing probably a historical run in terms of the finals. I mean, let's look at what we're seeing. Both the East and the West went into Game 7, and not only did they go into Game 7, but the likely teams, the home teams that were hosting the Game 7, didn't come to the poll, didn't answer the call, whatever you want to call it. Both the home teams being Boston and, of course, Houston didn't answer the call in Game 7. And the unfortunate but most likely teams that we all predicted back in September are now in the finals, that being LeBron James and the Cleveland Cavaliers, and, of course, the Hampton Five, or whatever they want to call themselves, from Golden State Warriors. They're back in the business. And how excited is the NBA for this game? Because if you're the NBA and you're that front office, this is what everybody has been calling for, a four-peat. This is the first time in NBA history that two teams have played each other for the fourth time for the NBA Finals championship. And I tell you what, when you think about it, and for all those doubters, you've got to tip your hat to LeBron James for what he's been able to accomplish through trades, through guys leaving, through injury, through midseason, the last second pickup trades, giving so much to the Lakers to get Larry Nance and Clark. I mean, they've done probably, if you want to talk about what LeBron James has done, you got to tip your hat to the management at Cleveland Cavaliers as well. They were able to see that they needed a couple elements, and those elements have actually come to call and actually done well for him. Larry Nance has been a good defensive guy. Sometimes you see him going off and getting the big-time score, but he's been able to do what they need. Clark, as well as Brown. I mean, we're talking about, I might be able to pull the comments, but I mean, did you hear what Brown or what LeBron James had to talk about Brown and what he's gone through? That this is probably the smallest of accomplishments that this guy's gone through, having open heart surgery, things of that nature. I mean, this guy's probably got about a 9-inch scar right down the center of his chest. And he was once told he'd never play again. And I mean, I know how that feels, because I can remember when I did a 360 some ancients of years ago when I was playing at Notre Dame. I can remember that doctor walking in and saying that, there's a possibility he'd never run the same again. So, it's just amazing when you think about what this young man has gone through and what he means to LeBron James. And I think LeBron James was eloquent in the way he was able to tell you how much that guy being a part of this team at this part in the junction, at this stage of their lives, the importance of having him on this team and being a contributor, not just a guy who comes off the bench and adds minutes. He was able to be a contributor, and for all likeliness, he was the number 2 man for LeBron James in Game 7 that helped this team get to the NBA Finals. And then, of course, you've got the Golden State Warriors. And so much is going to be talked about with the Golden State Warriors, because the question that so many people are asking today is, were the Warriors lucky, or was it just James Harden choked? I mean, that's been the question I've heard on all the bands, on all the television shows, on all the sports talk, is did James Harden choke, by going 12 of 29? And I have to tell you, there's a lot to be said about the fact that CP3, of course, Chris Paul, pulled a hammy. Now, I'm going to give you a little life lesson about a hamstring pull, okay? A hamstring pull has probably about 9 different degrees. And so for me to sit here on this side of the microphone and on this side of the West Coast, and Chris Paul's in Texas, and me to talk about his hamstring is really just hypothetical. And I want everybody to really think of that, because I'm going to give you different severities. And remember, there's a thing called tolerance, and every player has a different level of tolerance when you're talking about a hamstring. But basically, what happens with a hamstring pull is, I'm going to use my hands as a depiction of basically what occurs. And what typically happens in a hamstring pull is fibers pull across. And so some of those might pull, and actually, it's not a pull. There's no such thing as a pull. There are partial tears. And some of those ligaments will partially tear. And part of what is necessary at that point, and in order to speed up healing in the National Football League, I don't know what they do in the National Basketball League, but they will tend to find a cortisone and an anti-inflammatory type substance that will allow that to clear the blood from that area where those fibers are, so that those fibers can blend back together and can heal quicker. Now, I'm going to give you the ones and twos of it. To what degree Chris Paul's tear is, I can't really tell you. I know I've suffered 2 pulled hamstrings in my lifetime. One was a severe, which I will put at a level, say 5 being the highest. I'm going to give you a 3.5. And then I'm going to give you a level of like a 1.5. The 1.5 pull that I had feels more like a cramp. It was able to take an injection. I was able to keep it stretched and keep it, because part of what it does is it locks up. So it doesn't want to stretch anymore. The longer you can keep it elongated and keep it, healing properly, the quicker you'll come back from it. So they injected it on both occasions. They were both injected. The one that I gave you a severity of about a 1.5, I was able to come back within 5 or 6 days. The one that was more about the 3.5 point out of 5 mark, if you want to give a severity, it took probably about 10 days. Now, Chris Paul's sitting on an injury that really is anywhere in between. So I'm telling you guys, so you don't start, what I'm starting to hear a little bit is, is this a typical Chris Paul move? Because Chris Paul got injured when he was with the Clippers all the time down the stretch. And that was one of the probably main reasons the Clippers said, he's not helping us when we need him, so we can let him go now. We'll get through the season. We'll see where we're at. But the point of what I'm trying to get to you is, I don't want people to think that this is all about Chris Paul. But I will say this, because I did have an opportunity during the course of just doing some research and listening to everything that was being said. And I will give you one little sound bite that I want you guys to listen to. And, of course, this one came from Eric Gordon. And he's just basically making his notion of how he feels the loss of Chris Paul affected his team this past week.
It's definitely tough because when everybody counted us out before the series started, we knew we had a chip on our shoulder to win this series, and it sucks because you can win this series if we just have one more playmaker. Just as Chris, if he was out there, he would have been playing on Thursday, and it's just tough. I love going to battle with these guys, and it's just tough from going into a game where we had to be in so small margin of error. We just couldn't make too many mistakes. We had to shoot the ball well. We had to do a lot of things for us to win tonight, and it's just tough to. It was just tough to do it against a team like that.
Now, of course, that was Eric Gordon, and the funny thing is, he didn't talk about the thing that they did bad, which is they shot terribly. Whether Chris Paul was there or not, it was a situation where, if you're watching this Houston team, and I think Charles Barkley said it at the end of his telecast, that hopefully in the future, some teams will go back to shooting jump shots for 2. It got ugly. I mean, man, oh man, did it get ugly during the course of this game. And I don't care if Chris Paul was playing or not, it wasn't going to make a difference if they were still shooting that poorly. I mean, there was one occasion, I think I was sitting there watching, and they were like 1 of 27, or it was horrendous. I mean, everybody who walked in, Ariza, Harden, you name it, they all shot threes of abundance rate. I mean, so large that they set an NBA record. What did they shoot? Something like they went a stretch where they missed, I want to say 27 straight shots at threes. And it just got so, I mean, you could see it burning down deep in the third quarter because Houston couldn't buy a bucket at that point. They were hard pressed to get even a jump shot to fall. And finally, Harden took one to the rim, laid it up, got two out of it. But it was bad. That's all I can tell you. And the question I said to you earlier was it the Warriors just dumb luck? The basketball gods basically put a cap on the rim, and they couldn't buy a bucket. So was it the basketball gods giving the luck to the Warriors? Because honestly, coming in at half, this Warrior team was struggling just as bad. I mean, they weren't shooting very well. They couldn't close out their points. And Houston looked like they were on the way to being a great new series. Houston versus Cleveland. But then, like I said, it's like they just went into shock. James Harden finished the game 12 of 29. 5 turnovers, was probably his biggest faux pas, is he had those 5 turnovers. The same thing with LeBron. You know, they have a beautiful game, 40 points, 13 assists, 7 or 8 rebounds or 9 rebounds, almost had a triple-double, but he still had 8 turnovers. So, when you start watching the NBA Finals, you just start to see, here we go again. And you got to tap your hit, you really tilt and give a tilt to your hat to the Houston Rockets. They went out and they won 65 games this year. And many people are going to say that, somebody's got to go now. And you really question, is this the right Houston team? Is this the formula? Because you defeated 3 versus a 3. And it got to some points in the game where Houston was popping, driving the ball, getting 2s, and Kevin and Curry were dropping 3s, so it just didn't make a difference. For every 2 buckets they were scoring, they were still going to be down 2 points. And, it was just a fabulous weekend. If you're a basketball fan, this is the weekend you wait for. LeBron James will go into the Oracle Arena on Thursday, and he's got a chip on his shoulder. I think LeBron is going to play a very stupendous game. I think, and maybe you just count me wrong on this, they got 1,000-to-1 chance in Las Vegas that the Cavaliers can actually win a game in Oracle. But don't be surprised. Many people are talking about it. Don't be surprised if LeBron doesn't go up there and steal one of these home games, because I believe he will. I think LeBron James will go into the Oracle Arena, and I won't be shocked if he doesn't steal number 1. I think part of it will be because he's going to be well rested. And, that's the one thing you can say about LeBron James. More so than any player in the league, he was exhausted. He exerted himself well beyond anything we've ever seen a champion do. And part of the reason he had to exert himself is because this team that he's playing with is not the best of teams. Kevin Love goes down, and I get frustrated with Kevin Love because, I don't know. Maybe it's just because I'm a football player, so I bump heads all the time. But that wasn't a big shock to me, him and bumping heads, and to be out for 7 or 8 days because he bumped his head? Really? I don't know. We'll talk about another part of Kevin Love's scenario with his head a little later. But, I want to see my stars play it out. And I don't know whether it's because of the mentality of football players. Maybe that's why, I'm not the right person to talk to about CTE. But, I'm a hard-pressed guy that if I get injured and I'm not hurt, there's a difference in being injured, sore, a cramp, or being injured. And I'm talking about hurt versus injury. I'm going to go back out there. There's no way I'm going to let my teammates play this could be final game of the year without me. I just can't do that. And at 12 and 13 and $16 million in the case of Kevin Love, maybe it's just me that the league just seems to continue to be softer and softer and softer. And maybe this is what people get complaints and get fired up and get all riled up when they start making the comparison to LeBron, to Kareem, to Michael Jordan, because the game truly has softened up, and maybe it's just me and I'm old school, but I want to see my stars start the game and finish the game. So I have no question of who the best team was on the floor. And I'm telling you now, yes, the Warriors are the better team, I feel, than the Houston Rockets. But, of course, the seasonal record won't show that. Houston felt that this was their opportunity. And, unfortunately, their guys went cold and they didn't get it done. And that's really the final word on Houston versus the Golden State Warriors. But on the flip side, of course, it was LeBron James, and he got it done. If you were watching the Boston Celtics game, there was a lot of going on the court, off the court. I mean, I don't know how many times they had to talk about Paul Pierce, but Paul Pierce sitting there I want to say ringside, but courtside, and he was egging LeBron on. But at the same time, did you love the young boy? I shouldn't say that. The young man from the Boston Celtics, Jason Tatum. There was a picture that surfaced earlier in the week when Jason Tatum was about 10 years old and he came to LeBron's camp. And he got a chance to meet LeBron James. And LeBron James has gotten to know Jason Tatum over the few years, his family, what have you. But I tell you what, they talked about LeBron, and I really enjoyed a little bit of LeBron's after the game interview that he came up on the podium and talked about, that little moment he had with Jason Tatum where, believe it or not, sometimes the young buck goes up against the big force. And he got it the best of LeBron on that second. But, it's like every other war that you face. Sometimes you win the battle, but, of course, you lose the war. And I think on this occasion, Jason Tatum, Al Horford, two very highly respected individuals, they understand why this guy might be the best player who's ever played in the game, or at least in the conversation. And I tell you what, it was just so interesting to hear LeBron James talk about them after the game. And I tell you, this is what LeBron had to say about Jason Tatum and Al Horford.
To be honest, I haven't even really kind of processed it. It's a great atmosphere tonight to be a part of that. To be a part of another Game 7 on the road. Those are things, like I said, when you're done playing the game, that you can only dream and wish that you could be a part of that once again. So I haven't really processed the fact that going back to another finals yet. I know that's where we're headed. I think my teammates and my coaching staff and everybody put the work in. Even some of our staff that is not in the limelight or work behind the scenes. This is a complete team effort.
Down front right.
LeBron, I thought the 2012 game when you scored 48 against Boston was your signature game here. Can you talk about where today fits in your competition against the Boston?
I don't know. I just know it's the present, and that's what I'm all about. I'm a guy who lives in the present. And for me, I just want to try to make plays tonight to help our ball club win, to put myself in position, put my teammates in position to be successful. And we was able to do that.
Ron, that post-game moment, over here to your left, that post-game moment you had with Al Horford, particularly Jason Tatum, can you put that into words, and was anything said between you guys?
There was a lot said, but more importantly, it's just the mutual respect and the competition. Me and Al has, we've had a lot of battles in the postseason, and been on a lot of all-star teams together, so I've always had a lot of mutual respect for Al and the way he conducted himself, not only as a player, but as a professional, both on and off the floor. So, that was the moment there. And then with Jason, I just love everything about the kid. The way he plays the game, his demeanor, where he come from. I know his parents, and I just know he's just built for stardom. He's built for success, and
That's both on and off the floor. So, two guys right there that Boston are very lucky to have them.
Right.
Man, you know what? That's first class. You know, there are very few guys. I think you play the game or are part of the game that you can always have a very respectful and a parting shot. I guess you can say, what a hell of a parting shot to be talked about by the guy who literally could be the greatest that's ever played the game. To talk about the kind of character that the player has on the court as well as off the court. And I don't think it comes from a better person than LeBron James, man. And I'm going to tell you, Jason Tatum, he's a star in the making. We're talking so much about Kyrie Irving and you know, what's going to happen when he's 100%. There's a difference when you're 6'8" and can do the exact same thing as a 6'3" man. There's a difference. There's a huge difference because you can play the game at such a higher level where, you know, for him to get his jump shot off over a 6'8" guard who's checking him makes it that much harder. But when you're 6'8" and you're being guarded by a 6'3" or 6'4" guard, man, just look at Kevin Durant. I mean, if you want to see the difference in a 6'7" forward and a 7 foot forward, just watch Kevin Durant. He plays a little man's game, but he plays at 7 feet in the air, and it just makes a difference. And I think that's the difference in Kyrie Irving and Jason Tatum. And I mean, Jason Tatum, you know, he's going to find himself the future of the Celtics franchise, no matter if Kyrie's there for, you know, the next 5 years or 10 years. This kid, Jason Tatum, has got something special about him, and you got to tip your hat to him. Just look at the response that you got from LeBron James talking about Jason Tatum after the game. Now, there was another moment in that game, and I don't know if most of you guys even caught it, but it's been talked about very well today. Where was Kyrie? I mean, getting up and last night, and, you know, everybody was talking about Kyrie. I mean, to the point that I even was watching, I can't think what show I was watching, but they brought on the little beautiful basketball player from Notre Dame. I can't even think of her name right now. That's just terrible of me to forget her name right now, but they had her on television, and it's going to come to me. Just Skylar Diggins. There we go, Greg. Skylar Diggins. She was on some talk show. They had her on the ESPN or whatever it was, but they even were talking about where was Kyrie Irving. Well, long and behold, today, of course, we know that Kyrie Irving supposedly, I don't know, this just blows my mind when I get the excuse that Boston delivers or that Kyrie delivers. Whoever delivered the news, it just didn't make any sense. Kyrie Irving, of course, was not on the bench for this game, and everybody was wondering where was his leadership. You know, you're one of those experienced leaders in this thing, and you got a lot of young rookie first-year players sitting on the bench that could really use your guidance. And Kyrie Irving was nowhere to be seen. And then it came out today that he was having a deviated septum surgery, having a nasal surgery on Game 7. Now, I don't know about you guys, but to me, that's like a load of crap. And I mean, that's a load of crap. And I don't want to say that Boston is lying, but if he did have this surgery, why the hell would you schedule a deviated septum surgery on Game 7? Why? It just doesn't make any sense. You know, that's part of being a team player. You're there for the good, you're there for the bad. And I'm not going to be the one that, you know, says negative things about Kyrie, but I just didn't like that fact that was the excuse that they gave me. A deviated septum surgery on a Sunday night. Okay. That really flies. Or Saturday night, I should say. I'm sorry. Give him Saturday night. Oh, it wasn't Sunday. But why? Why would you schedule a nasal surgery on the most important day in your franchise's history of this year? Why schedule a surgery? Even the team. I want to ask Boston, why would y'all schedule his surgery on the Game 7? It just didn't make any sense. And so many people are going to make a load out of that. But I can tell you, it really can't, it really won't make a lot of sense to me as to why they scheduled that the way they did. It really won't make any schedule. It just doesn't make sense. And I hope that as time passes, Kyrie will kind of clear the air on that, because it really just doesn't make sense. A nasal surgery on Game 7, Game 7 against your old team that you know your leadership is needed, badly needed in their case. But that's what they gave us, and that's the excuse that we're going to have to, I guess, take to the grave. I don't know, but it was just a terrible excuse for me. It just didn't make any sense to me, and that's my view in terms of Boston. Also, of course, with LeBron doing what he's done over this past year, it's going to create the next thing, and that's the wave of comparisons. Now, here's something I want you guys to remember. We're doing a lot of comparison about LeBron James and Michael Jordan, and neither one of those guys are the all-time leading scorer, all-time leading rebounder, all-time leading shot blocker. I sat there and thought about this as the story started swirling. How does this compare? Will this increase LeBron's legacy? And I keep forgetting, and maybe I'm wrong for forgetting this, but there's a guy by the name in college. His name was Lou Alcindor, and then he eventually changed to Islam and became Kareem Abdul-Jabbar. And I don't know why he is always etched out of conversations as the greatest player ever. You know, no matter how you think of it or pray on this, he's the only man standing on this earth that can literally say, I had an unstoppable shot. Not LeBron, not Kobe, not Jordan, not Curry. There's only one man, and he's 7'2", and he truly had an unstoppable shot. To this day, nobody has figured out how to block a sky hook, because it's unblockable. So when we're doing all these mass comparisons, I think I heard Keith Olbermann today bring up the fact that they came up with some kind of stupid formula that nobody really knows what the formula is. The formula for me is eyeball to eyeball. I was fortunate enough and blessed enough that I got a chance to watch most of Kareem's career from when he left Milwaukee and became a Laker through his Laker career. And I'm fortunate enough that I was a part and literally me and Jordan came out of college the same year. He left, of course, a year early, but it was my senior year. And, of course, I've been able to watch LeBron. And I've gotten to the point in my life that it's almost a mute. I become a mute because I have to show my lips closed because I can't compare these three. It's not like I'm comparing apples to apples. There were elements of each one of their games that I basically said that's unbelievable. You know, Jordan's will to win. Kareem's unbelievable sky hook. LeBron's phenomenal, and I truly mean it, phenomenal physical ability. I mean, the guy is 6'8", he moves like he's 6'1", he jumps like he's 6'3", and can leap out of a gym. And the one thing LeBron has done and shown me over his 15-year career is that if I have a weakness, I'll make it my strength. I mean, how many times did he hit threes when back in the day, we would be like, oh, no, don't shoot. Man, he shoots a three now. I expect it to go in. He's just like Curry to me, shooting threes. Well, maybe that might be a little far-fetched, but it's a good scenario right now. He's hitting threes at wills, shooting over 40, 50% on the threes. Foul shooting is still suspect, but he's over 80% in foul shooting. But he's hitting shots that you can see. It's just like calling horse. You know, when you're playing horse and you're banking it off the rim, flipping it up a finger row from the line, he's doing things that almost are just it's almost like you're saying to yourself, I've never seen a player do this before. And then you have to catch yourself and say, oh, no. I remember Mike did some of this stuff. Oh, I remember Lou Alcindor did, or Kareem did some of this, or Oscar Robertson did some of this. I mean, the thing I'm always finding myself catching is saying LeBron is doing something that I've never seen before, and I got to catch myself because I was saying that maybe 10 years ago. Man, I never seen somebody do something like that. And it perpetuates that competition and that comparison. But the one thing I want to say to all of us who are living in this time, because it's almost like when Mike was doing this, we said we'd never see another person do this. We'll see another LeBron, and we'll see another Kareem, and we'll see another MJ. That's the beauty of being a fan of sports and being a fan of the NBA. Something that we think we'd never see a little bit of or even a smidgen of, it's going to come back around. The cycle happens. The game evolves. The game changes a little bit. They're playing it so high above the rim now. I can remember when I was a basketball player and back in the 80s, and we were a high-flying team. People's like, man, we didn't think players would play that much above the rim because everything was that set shot and this and that. The game has changed. I think at some point they're probably going to have to change the rim and go to 12 feet because these players are playing so high above the rim. They're playing at 12 feet already. And all you can do is appreciate it. I think that's the one thing I've tried to tell people a lot over the last year. Don't try and guess or think what LeBron James is doing right now. You can't. You literally can't. We have to know that we can appreciate everything he's doing, and he's doing it at such a high level. I'm excited for Thursday night. You know, I'm gonna, if I could get over to Vegas, maybe I drop $1,000 to win 1,001 or whatever. I mean, I think now you can $100 can win you 1,000 the opposite way. I might pick LeBron and them to win Game 1 in the Oracle Center. Only reason I'm probably there is because I think they're going to come in with a true chip on their shoulder. You know, Golden State just got over a tiresome Game 7 with Houston that they had to go to the end. You know, LeBron and them actually, if you think about it, the last 5 minutes of that game, they knew they were winning. That game was sold up. They weren't going to drop any more points to the Boston Celtics, and Boston was just throwing up threes, just like Houston was trying to do as well. But man, it was just such a phenomenal game to watch with LeBron James and the Celtics, and the way they got out of there. I'm looking for them to pull the upset in Game 1 up in Oakland. And, you know, we'll know pretty soon because they're going to come out. And I think if anything, I think that Cavaliers team has got to be in there studying film. They know one thing and one thing only that they have to be able to do, and is they've got to win the third quarter. If they win the third quarter, they'll be all right against the Golden State Warriors, because I don't think I've ever seen a team play the third quarter as efficient as this team does. I mean, they'll score 30, 40 points just in the third quarter. And if they're down, they really spark it up, and they really beat it up really bad. So look for Thursday's game in the Oracle Arena to be probably the best of the 7. I hope that, you know, it goes at least 6. We know it will. But so many people right now are picking a sweep. They actually think this team is so good they can sweep through Cleveland, and I just don't see that happening. I see LeBron getting a steal up in Oakland, coming back to Cleveland, and if they can steal both of their ones in Cleveland and they'll be up 3-1, I'm telling you, then you know that they have a good chance of winning this game and winning this series. I'm going to stick with the Cavs going into the series. I know I wanted to ask you guys earlier on, who do you pick? But, you know, think about that. Shoot me a text, shoot me your email, throw it up on the Facebook. I'm not even checking I have to kill myself because I didn't check my Facebook. But tell me who you think right now is going to pull this game away. I mean, do you think this is a game that, you know, you can find Cleveland pulling away and getting a 3-1 advantage if they were able to steal one up in Oakland? I mean, what are your thoughts about that going into the game? The Cavaliers, the last time these two got together, it wasn't a force. LeBron didn't have nearly what he needed, and now guess what? Kyrie Irving isn't there anymore. So this team is going to be interesting going down the stretch, but I'll tell you what, I'm looking forward to it, and I'm definitely looking forward to seeing LeBron James show some magic against Golden State. You know, call me a homer if you want. I'm an Ohio boy, so I'm going to cheer for the Ohio team. Not that I'm a diehard fan of LeBron James, but I like this kid. He does everything the way I'd like to see it done. He's celebratory to his folks around him. He takes care of the folks around him, kind of like Stephen A. Smith says. He's a great, good Samaritan. He takes care of his kids. He loves his wife. All the great things that you see and you want to see in your athletes and your stars. LeBron James epitomizes that. And I'm hoping they go into this game and have a great game and do something fantastic like they did the last series against the Boston Celtics. Guys, you're listening to the Legends Community Show right here on thepowerofvoices.com. I'm your host, Greg Bell. And, of course, something happened last week. Didn't have a chance to really throw my hat into the mix. But I do want to talk about what's occurring in the National Football League. And I think all you guys know exactly what I'm talking about. And I'm going to be honest. It's almost crazy that I'm going to talk about what's going on in the National Football League, when I could be talking about Roseanne, because that's really the state of where we are when you start talking about what's going on in the freedom of speech and different things of that nature. I was talking with someone earlier today, and they were saying, it's going to be a point where you can't say certain things. And there's one thing that I want everybody to remember. In Roseanne's mind, in the owner's minds, they can say whatever they like to say. The question is are those people who say what they say prepared to deal with the aftermath, the consequences of their tongue? And in some cases, they could care less. Donald Trump has gotten away with a lot of things that he says that the average person would be fired for. The average person would be reprimanded. But for whatever the reason, he gets away with it. And I think so many people think like him now. They think they can say things that get them where they are. Roseanne Barr, man, that's just a tip of the iceberg. That just tells us the state of where we've gone and how far we've fallen. But I want to talk more about what the owners did a week ago at the owners meeting and give you my 2 cents on this national anthem rule that has now become a part of the NFL. And it really, it's almost like you threw salt on the wound. Most of the people were becoming very nonchalant of worrying about the national anthem protest. To be honest, I don't know who protested at the end of the season. Maybe the kid who's looking for a job right now from San Francisco, who was there, Eric, I can't think of his last name. That tells you how quickly we forget things. But the National Football League as a whole has decided to give the players the option of staying in the room or staying in the locker room during the national anthem, but they will not allow any protest whatsoever from now on during the national anthem. And mind you, this silent protest could be one of a million things. And that's what's going to be so unkindly or so uncanny, because players get creative, there one guy might decide to wear a black glove, and on the other hand, not wear a glove. What are going to be the signs of protest that guys are going to be reprimanded, or in this case, teams are going to be reprimanded for their player making a silent protest? I know I heard DeMaurice Smith, the president of the NFL Players Union, and he basically said, the Players Union had nothing to do with it, and it was pretty. I know Roger fairly well. I had a chance of working for him for 3 years, and I'm talking about Roger Goodell. I know where his mind is in terms of the players. I know what his heart is because we've had candid conversations. He cares about the players. But in the end, what I tell everybody about Roger is that he is the mouthpiece for the owners. And he knows that's his job. His job is to be the commissioner of the National Football League and the vocal individual for 31 owners. Remember, Green Bay is not considered an owner. It's a city that owns the team. So we got 31 owners that are all billionaires because of this game. Few of them are like Steve Ballmer or, the guy from Home Depot or a few of these guys. Most of them have become billionaires because they own NFL teams. and the value of this team. And there's one word that I think everybody continues to misuse in the National Football League, and that's partners. The players are not partners, never have been, never will be. Unfortunately, we have 31 owners that are very crude. They're very selective. They're very, what do you want to say, old boyish. They will never see eye to eye as, I want to say was it the Miami or the Carrot? No, it was the Jacksonville owner. They'll never see eye to eye in allowing the inmates to run the prison, as he said, right? They don't see their players as partners. They may allow people to voice that, but in the end of the day, I own the team. You work for me. I make the rules. And that's that old boy system that is there. And that's the reason that, they're the only industry in America that I know of that the courts have legally said you're a monopoly, but it's okay. I mean, Donald Trump fought these guys to the bitter end and won the trial, and they were classified as a monopoly. And in our jurisdiction in the United States, it says that there will be no monopolies. The government will step in to stop those companies. Well, they haven't stopped these 31 owners yet. They're a monopoly. They set the rules. And in the end, you are a worker for the owner. No matter how rich you make him, you are never going to be his partner. And he will never view you as his partner. And so now they go out and they decide that they're going to make a new rule. And the craziest part about the whole rule is, and I guess you can say I voiced my disappointment in the front office and Roger and his group there, Troy Vincent and the whole group of them, is that they get in front of the mic and they tell you that the owners had a unanimous decision, even though you had owners that abstained, owners that said nay, but they said it was unanimous. This is what they all wanted. And they didn't even take a true vote. And now we have this new policy that everybody is supposed to live with. And here's the thing I want to tell them. All you did was push it onto the players to say, will they respect the flag or not? They've pushed it on without doing the one thing they said in the offseason that they would do, and that's get together to talk about social injustice. I want to make this clear to everyone who's listening right here on the powerofvoices.com and listening to the Legends Community Show right here with your host, Greg Bell. It's never been about the flag. And at some point, if you don't get that through your brain, then you need to look in the mirror and say, I might be part of the problem. Because everybody has voiced it. They continue to voice it. I mean, to the point where you call a mass murderer a nice Christian boy. Even though he just killed 10 people, he was a little depressed. And then you got a Hispanic or a black or whatever that gets shot down by those same police with no gun, a cell phone, and the first thing you can say is, oh, he's had a history of crime. Or we saw, well, maybe it had nothing to do with his shooting. It had nothing to do with the fact that these cops just social injustice. They just killed a man of color for no apparent reason. But a mass murderer, you're trying to depict him as a Christian-going kid. And so these are the things that the initial protest was brought about. That is what Colin Kaepernick was really speaking about. And he took the initiative with the advice of a Green Beret to take a knee for the national anthem. And we have dwelled now for over 2 years on the national anthem and how we are disrespecting our troops, our servicemen, and our country. And I got to say, at some point, you got to see that either you're not trying to be a part of the solution or you guys have a problem altogether, and you're probably a part of that problem. It's a sad day when we can see things happening in front of us, and we just can't make our minds click and say, that's wrong or that's right. And it just blows my mind because we're talking about something that is simple. Social injustice and making it fair for all. Things that we talked about in the 50s and the 60s when I was born that I thought by the time 2018 rolled around would be a part of our history and not a part of our presence. But we're still a part of our presence. And the NFL failed. That's all I can tell you. They failed in making this announcement. And I'm proud of guys like, Howie's son, Chris Long, who spoke up and said, when are they going to take the blinders off and see what's going on? I came up with a really clever thought process here. If I were these players, one, I would make the protest, but, the protest now should be that they should stand and pray and do it in the locker room, kind of what we used to do. We used to have a prayer right before we went on the field when the national anthem was playing. As many people know, before 2009, there was no standing for national anthem. It wasn't until 2009 that the government gave the United States Armed Forces gave close to 80-90 million dollars to the National Football League to get their players to stand in for the flag outside because enrollment increased. Patriotism increased by looking at the men in the National Football League standing and listening to the national anthem. That's amazing, but that's the truth. So let's not get this whole thing twisted that this is about patriotism and it's about the national anthem. It never has been about either or. It's been about social injustice. And, the more and more I see and see the honors that Colin Kaepernick is getting across the country, I'm almost to the point that, they just kind of sowed their own faith. If he doesn't have a job by the end of this week, which would be 2 weeks after they've made this new agreement, if he and the other young man don't have jobs, it's pretty evident there's collusion. And that this collusion is against two men who upset 31 gentlemen. 31 old gentlemen, the old boys club, and they have basically gotten together to say we are not going to let them play in our league anymore, to show their authority. So, unfortunately for the NFL, they've kind of shined the light that they thought they were putting on the players. They put it back on themselves because either they're going to find a way to put these boys, young men in uniforms, or these young men are going to get hundreds to millions of dollars in settlements from them for colluding against them, which is pretty evident at this point. It's just sad that we're still talking about something that was fizzing out. It truly was fizzing out, and then the owners came up with this cockamamie scheme to basically take away the freedom of speech. And I know I've heard it from everybody from this world to the next that the workplace isn't the place to make your demonstration. And I agree. The workplace isn't. But the workplace seems to move in the National Football League, doesn't it? The workplace could be at the stadium. The workplace can be in front of a camera. The first workplace can be at your true facility. That's where they truly work. They actually play and entertain people in that stadium. But their workplace that they go 9 to 5 every day happens to be somewhere miles away from that stadium sometimes. So at what point in the life does a player have a forum? If he turned the camera on and he says something or wears something negatively, that's still his workplace. He can't. When does he have that opportunity? Other than when most people find the cameras are on is the prime time to make a peaceful protest, and it doesn't. It doesn't really add to the fact that nothing was said. Everything that Colin Kaepernick did to this point was what he was given advice on. And nobody's even talking about the fact that the Green Beret even gave him the advice. It's just sad that the owners made this rule. And hopefully players get together and they figure out a way that they can take this rule and make it benefit their cause, because their cause is something that's real. And it's something that we as a society have got to, at some point, embrace and decide to be part of the solution instead of part of the problem. Guys, you're listening to the Legends Community Show right here on the Power of Voices. Hey, before I get out of here, I got to talk about one other sport that really has become the greatest, exciting, most dominating sport in our news today. And, of course, we're talking about the Golden Knights of Las Vegas. They're 1-0 up on the Washington Capitals right now over in Las Vegas. They'll be playing, I believe, probably tonight or tomorrow. Alex Ovechkin, probably one of the greatest scorers of all time, can't seem to get it done right now. It is crazy. I was over in Vegas a week ago, and I'm just telling you, I can't wait till when the Raiders invade Las Vegas. In 2 years, guys, in 2020, the Raiders are going to invade Las Vegas, and they are going to go berserk. If they're going this crazy for a sport that most Americans can't even follow the puck, I don't know what's going to happen when the Raiders invade Las Vegas in 2020. The stadium is going up. The heat is boiling over there. So what do you want to do? You want to be inside? Man, I'm just telling you, you can't buy a Golden Knights ticket for less than $1,000. And they are playing extremely, extremely well right now. Guys, can you just imagine an expansion team, the first time only, and I have to tip my hat, even though I don't have it on, the Bill Foley, the Santa Barbara guy, know him from Santa Barbara, brought his team a year and a half ago, and no one believed it would do anything. But that's amazing how you get the right head coach, and he puts together the right teams of those veterans who were left for expansion draft. He put the right chemistry together. Can you imagine? There's only one other team, and that other team just happened to be the original start of the NHL. They were all expansions, but the Las Vegas Golden Knights, if they go on and win this world championship, it will be the first time in sports history that an expansion team has come into existence and won the championship the first year. How exciting would that be? And I'm just going to tell you, if they do it, it's going to last for 2 years. It's going to roll right into the National Football League. And the Raiders, as Al Davis would say, the Raiders will take over Las Vegas like you've never seen before. They are getting ready. The Raider gear is there. The silver and black is there. Of course, what color are the Knights? Black and gold. I'm just telling you, there's going to be so much black going on in Las Vegas. The black hole is going to go crazy in Las Vegas in 2 years, guys. I'm just telling you. I was over in Vegas a week ago, and I couldn't tell you the excitement that I saw as people were talking Raiders and Golden Knights. Congratulations to the Golden Knights. I think you're going to pull out and come away with the Stanley Cup, Lord Stanley's Cup, and I might have to go over there and see if I can get a swig out of it. All that and much, much more, guys. Hey, it's been a great hour here spending with you guys here on the powerofvoices.com. I'm your host, Greg Bell. Of course, this is the Legends Community Show right here on the powerofvoices.com. Every week, tune in, and I will talk to you later. Bye-bye.